Impossible. No human has ever reached this sector.
Then today is your first.
Well,
A single scan. That is all it took. 1 second, soldier was just another face in a long line. The next second, an entire coalition base stood frozen, eyes wide, breath held. This is not a normal story. This did not happen on Earth. It happened on a joint human-alien outpost, far past our solar system, where a young corporal named Elena Reyes walked up to a checkpoint with nothing but a travel bag and a tired smile. She thought she was just reporting for a routine transfer. She had no idea her name was already known. She had no idea that somewhere, deep in alien archives, her file had a mark on it that only a handful of beings in galactic history ever receive. When the guard scanned her passport, his skin drained of color. His hands shook, and then he did something no one expected. He called the entire base to attention. But the truth behind this will shock you. By the end of this story, you will learn 3 things. First, why an alien species tracks humans using a system Earth does not even know exists. Second, what really happened years earlier in Elena's childhood, an event she barely remembers, but one that changed how an entire species sees humanity. And third, the real reason the base went silent that day, and it is not the reason you think. This is a fictional story, built in the HFY tradition, where humanity surprises the galaxy again and again. Any resemblance to real military terms or ranks is for storytelling only. Sit back. Let me show you exactly how this happened. Elena Reyes stepped off the transport shuttle with sore legs and a dry mouth. The trip from Earth had taken 11 days. She had slept maybe 6 hours total. Her uniform was wrinkled. Her hair was pulled back in a messy braid. She did not look like someone important. She looked like someone who wanted coffee and a bed. Outpost Kepler 9 sat on a cold gray moon, half buried under domes of reinforced glass. It was one of the newer joint bases, shared between humans and an alliance of alien species called the Threll Coalition. Humans had only been part of that coalition for 6 years. Trust was still thin. Most human soldiers stationed there worked logistics, supply lines, translation, small jobs. Nothing exciting. Elena had been told the same thing. Report inches. Check your gear. Settle into barracks. Simple. She walked toward the checkpoint gate, passport in hand. The line moved slowly. Ahead of her, a Threll officer scanned each traveler with a small device shaped like a flat silver stone. The Threll were tall, with pale blue skin and large dark eyes. They were calm by nature, almost too calm. Humans on base joked that Threll guards had 2 moods, bored and slightly less bored. When it was her turn, Elena stepped forward and handed over her passport without much thought. The Threll guard took it, pressed it against his scanner, and waited for the usual green light. Instead, the screen flashed red. Then it flashed again. Then a strange white symbol appeared, one Elena had never seen before. The guard's dark eyes went wide. His pale blue skin turned even paler, almost gray, like blood had drained straight out of him. His hand trembled as he looked from the scanner to Elena, then back to the scanner. "Wait here," he said. His voice cracked. Elena blinked. "Is something wrong with my passport?" He did not answer. Instead, he reached for the comm unit clipped to his shoulder. His fingers fumbled twice before he managed to press the button. "All personnel," he said, his voice shaking through the base speakers. "All personnel, attention. Attention on deck. Command override. Priority 1. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, one by one, every soldier on that base, human and Threll alike, stopped what they were doing. Boots snapped together. Backs straightened. Even off-duty soldiers stepped out of barracks doors and stood at rigid attention, unsure why, but obeying instantly. Alina stood frozen at the gate, passport still in the guard's shaking hand, completely confused. She had checked in for a routine transfer. She was a corporal, not a general. She had done nothing that morning except sleep on a shuttle and eat a protein bar. And yet, somehow, the entire base had just gone silent because of her. The guard would not look her in the eye. He kept glancing at the small screen, then at her, like he was checking if she was even real. Around them, other Threll officers began walking briskly toward the checkpoint, whispering to each other in their own language, throwing quick glances her way. One older Threll officer arrived first, his uniform marked with more silver stripes than the others. He looked at the scanner screen, and his expression shifted from confusion to something Alina had never seen on an alien face before. Fear, mixed with respect, maybe even a little bit of awe. "Confirm the code," the older officer said quietly to the guard. The guard turned the screen so his superior could see. The older Threll's dark eyes narrowed. He read it once, then again. Then he looked up, straight at Alina, like he was seeing her for the very first time. "Corporal Reyes," he said slowly, "you will come with me." Alina felt her stomach twist. "Sir, I don't understand. Is there a problem with my papers?" The officer did not answer right away. He glanced at the guard, then back at her. "No," he said finally. "There is no problem with your papers." He paused. "There is a problem with what your papers say about you." That sentence would follow Alina for the rest of the day, echoing in her mind as she was escorted, not to the barracks, but straight to the base commander's office. Whatever that scan had shown, it was not a mistake. It was something buried deep in her file, something the Threll clearly understood far better than she did. And whatever it was enough to stop an entire outpost cold. Alina had joined the coalition forces 3 years earlier. She grew up in a small town outside Denver, raised by her grandmother after her parents died in a transport accident when she was 6. She barely remembered them. What she did remember, in fragments, was noise, sirens, bright lights, a crowd of people running in one direction while she stood still, confused, a small child lost in chaos. She never talked about that memory much. It felt more like a dream than something real. Her grandmother always changed the subject whenever it came up. So Alina stopped asking. She grew up, went to school, joined the coalition logistics program because it paid well and let her see the stars. She was good at her job. Steady, careful, not flashy. The kind of soldier commanders trusted precisely because she never caused problems. Which is exactly why what happened at that checkpoint made no sense to her. She followed the older Threll officer down a long metal corridor, past windows that looked out onto the gray, dusty moonscape outside. Human soldiers passing by still stood frozen at attention, watching her walk past, whispering to each other the moment she was out of earshot. She caught pieces of it. "Who is she? Did you see the scan? I've never seen the guards react like that." Alina's hands were sweating. She wiped them on her uniform pants, trying to steady her breathing. In her mind, she ran through every mission, every report, every small mistake she might have made in the last 3 years. Nothing came close to explaining this. They reached a large door marked with both human and Threll symbols. The officer pressed his palm to a scanner, and the door slid open with a quiet hiss. Inside sat Base Commander Voss, a stern human woman in her 50s, along with 2 more Threll officers Alina did not recognize. All 3 were staring at a screen on the wall, the same strange white symbol from the checkpoint glowing across it. Commander Voss looked up as Alina entered. Her face was unreadable, but her eyes carried the same startled weight Alina had seen on the guard. "Corporal Reyes," the commander said. "Please, sit down." Alina sat. Her legs felt unsteady beneath her. "Ma'am, I don't understand what's happening. Did I do something wrong?" Commander Voss exchanged a glance with the senior Threll officer before answering. No, Corporal. You didn't do anything wrong, she paused, choosing her next words carefully. But it seems the Threll Coalition has known something about you for a very long time. Something none of us were ever told. Elena's mouth went dry. Known what? Ma'am? The senior Threll officer stepped forward, his expression grave but not unkind. Corporal Reyes, he said, his voice slow and careful, like he was translating something difficult in his head. Your name is listed in our deepest archive, a registry we call the Vect Ledger. It contains the names of beings our predictive systems mark as pivotal. Beings who, according to our models, change the outcome of events too important to ignore. Elena blinked. I'm sorry, I don't know what that means. It means, the officer said, that somewhere in your past, something happened. Something small to you, perhaps, but something our systems recorded as one of the rarest patterns we have ever measured. Commander Voss leaned forward. Elena, do you remember anything from your childhood involving Threll personnel? Anything at all, even something that felt unimportant? Elena's mind raced back to that fragmented memory. The sirens, the lights, the chaos. She had always assumed it was the transport accident that killed her parents. But now, sitting in this room, with 3 alien officers watching her she held the answer to a question they had been asking for years. She realized she might have been wrong the entire time. There's something, she said slowly, but I don't really remember it clearly. I was 6. There was noise, and runnings, and I remember being very scared. My grandmother never wanted to talk about it. The senior Threll officer nodded slowly, as if confirming something he already suspected. Then let me show you what we remember, he said. Because our systems remember far more than you do. He tapped a control on the table, and the screen on the wall shifted. A recorded image appeared, grainy but clear enough to make out shapes. A crowded evacuation site. Human and Threll figures running in different directions. Smoke in the background, and in the middle of it all, a small child, standing completely still, looking directly at a control panel that adults around her were frantically trying to fix. Elena's breath caught in her throat. The child was her. This is the Kepler colony incident, the officer said quietly. 14 years ago, a reactor malfunction threatened to destroy an entire evacuation shelter, including 200 Threll diplomats and their human escorts. Adults on site, trained engineers among them, could not solve the failure in time. The system was too unfamiliar, too fast, too complex. On the screen, the small girl reached forward and pressed a sequence of buttons on the panel, calm and unhurried, while chaos raged around her. A moment later, the alarm stopped. The lights steadied. The shelter held. You were 6 years old, Commander Voss said softly, watching Elena's face. You solved a problem our own engineers could not solve fast enough. And you did it without panic, without hesitation, in less than 9 seconds. Elena stared at the screen, at the small child who was somehow her, doing something she had absolutely no memory of. I don't remember any of this, she whispered. Most beings on the Vect Ledger don't, the senior Threll officer said. That is often part of the pattern. The moments that matter most are rarely the ones we choose to remember. The room fell quiet. Elena looked from the screen to the officers, then to Commander Voss, searching for some kind of explanation that made sense. All she found were more questions. Why does this matter now? She finally asked. That was 14 years ago. Why would a passport scan today bring all of this up? The senior Threll officer's expression darkened slightly. He glanced at Commander Voss, who gave a small, reluctant nod. Because the Vect Ledger is not just a record of the past. Corporal, he said. It is a predictive system. And 3 days ago, It flagged something new, something involving this exact outpost. Elena felt a cold weight settle in her chest. What kind of something? The officer took a slow breath before answering. A pattern matching a pre-collapse event, he said. The same kind of pattern that appeared just before the Kepler colony reactor failure 14 years ago. Our system believes something very similar is about to happen here, and it flagged your arrival as directly connected to the outcome. The room felt smaller suddenly, the air thicker. Elena's hands curled into fists on her lap. You're saying your system thinks I'm going to be involved in some kind of disaster. Here? Now? We are saying, the senior officer replied carefully, that whenever a pattern like yours appears before an event like this, history shows something extraordinary tends to happen next. Sometimes it prevents catastrophe entirely, but the pattern itself does not promise safety. It only promises significance. Commander Voss rubbed her temples, clearly still processing all of this herself. Corporal, I need you to understand something. The Threll do not make predictions casually. Their systems have been refined over centuries, built from data across dozens of worlds. When they say a pattern is forming, they are rarely wrong. Elena swallowed hard. So what happens now? The senior Threll officer looked at her with an expression that was almost sympathetic, almost apologetic, like he wished he had better news to give her. Now, he said, we prepare. Because if the Vect ledger is correct, something is coming to this base. And whatever it is, our system believes you are at the center of how it ends. For the next several hours, Elena barely had time to think, let alone process everything she had just learned. The base commander called an emergency briefing, and word spread fast, even without official announcements. By the time Elena walked into the mess hall for a quick meal, she noticed the shift immediately. Conversation stopped. Eyes followed her. Soldiers who had never spoken to her before nodded respectfully, almost nervously, as she passed. She hated it. She had spent 3 years trying to be reliable, not remarkable. Now, overnight, she had become something else entirely, something she did not choose and did not understand. Later that evening, she sat alone in a small briefing room with the senior Threll officer, whose name she finally learned was Ambassador Kelth. He had been with the Coalition for over 30 years and had personally overseen the Vect Ledger program since its early expansion to include human data. I know this is overwhelming, Kelth said, settling into the seat across from her. His large dark eyes studied her carefully. You did not ask for this. None of the names on our ledger ever ask for it. Elena rubbed her eyes, exhaustion pressing down on her. Can you at least explain how this system works? Because right now, all I know is that some alien AI thinks I'm important, and I have no idea why, or what I'm supposed to do about it. Kelth nodded slowly. The Vect Ledger began nearly 2 centuries ago, he explained. Our species faced a crisis, a war that nearly ended us. In the chaos of that war, a small number of individuals repeatedly appeared at turning points, moments where outcomes shifted in ways our best strategists could not predict. We began tracking these individuals, searching for patterns in their backgrounds, their behavior, their decisions under pressure. And you found something, Elena said quietly. We found a signature, Kelth replied. A specific combination of calm decision-making under extreme stress, paired with unconventional problem-solving. It is rare, exceedingly rare. Among our own species, we identify perhaps one such individual every few decades. Elena leaned forward. And humans? Kelth was quiet for a moment. When your species joined the Coalition 6 years ago, we began incorporating human data into our models out of scientific curiosity. Nothing more. We expected the signature to appear rarely, if at all, given how different your species is from ours. He paused. Instead, we found something we did not expect. What? Elena asked. The signature appears in humans, Kelth said slowly, far more often than in any other species we have ever studied. Not common, but far beyond rare. It is as if your species carries some deep, persistent tendency toward this exact kind of behavior. Calm decisions in chaos. Solutions where our models predict failure. Our analysts have a private theory about why, though it remains unofficial. What theory? Alina asked. Kelth hesitated, choosing his words with unusual care. That humanity, as a species, has spent its entire history surviving conditions that should have destroyed it many times over. Disease, disaster, war, scarcity. Your history is filled with individuals who, when everything else failed, simply refused to accept the predicted outcome. Over enough generations, our analysts believe this tendency became something closer to instinct. Alina sat with that for a long moment. It was a strange kind of compliment, wrapped inside something that still felt like a threat hanging over her head. So you're saying humans keep breaking your predictions? Constantly, Kelth admitted, and for the first time, something like a small, tired smile crossed his face. It has become something of a professional frustration among our analysts. We build a model. Humans exceed it. We refine the model. Humans exceed it again. Despite everything, Alina felt a flicker of something like pride beneath the fear. But it faded quickly as she remembered the reason for this entire conversation. You still haven't told me what's actually coming, she said. You said the pattern matches something before the Kepler colony disaster. What does that mean for this base? Right now. Kelth's expression grew serious again. 3 days ago, long-range sensors detected an unregistered vessel entering the outer edge of this system. It has made no contact, followed no standard approach protocols, and continues moving toward this outpost at a steady, deliberate pace. Alina's stomach tightened. A hostile ship. We do not know its intentions, Kelth said carefully. It could be a scouting vessel from a rogue faction, still hostile to the coalition following our early conflicts. It could be something else entirely. What we do know is that its energy signature closely matches, class of vessel responsible for 2 previous outpost attacks in the past decade. And the Vect ledger flagged my arrival as connected to this, Alina said slowly, putting the pieces together. Yes, Kelth confirmed. Your transfer to this base was approved through normal channels, weeks before this vessel was detected. There is no indication your arrival and this threat are directly linked by choice or plan. And yet, the pattern remains. History shows, again and again, that when someone matching your signature is present before a crisis, the outcome shifts dramatically, almost always toward survival rather than disaster. Alina felt the weight of that settle heavily across her shoulders. So what do you want me to do? I'm logistics, ambassador. I move supplies. I file reports. I'm not a combat specialist, and I'm definitely not whatever your system thinks I am. Kelth studied her for a long moment before answering. We are not asking you to become someone else, Corporal Reyes. We are simply asking you to remain here, close to command, and trust that whatever instinct guided a 6-year-old girl through that reactor crisis 14 years ago is still somewhere inside you now. It was not the answer Alina wanted. She wanted rules, a plan, something clear to hold on to. Instead, she was being asked to trust a version of herself she did not even remember, based on a prediction made by machines she barely understood, about a threat with no clear shape yet. That night, Alina barely slept. Every time she closed her eyes, fragments of the old memory returned, brighter now that she had seen the footage. The smoke, the panel, her own small hands moving with a calm she could not explain. She kept waiting to feel that same certainty now, waiting for some instinct to rise up and tell her what to do. It did not come. She simply felt tired and scared and entirely unprepared for whatever was approaching this base. By the following morning, The entire outpost had shifted into a quiet, tense readiness. Defense stations were double-staffed. Extra sensor arrays were brought online across the moon's surface. Commander Voss ordered a full review of evacuation routes, just in case. And through it all, Alina found herself pulled into meetings she never expected to attend, watched by officers who treated her less like a corporal and more like some kind of unofficial good luck charm. She hated the attention. She hated the pressure. Most of all, she hated not knowing what was coming, or what she was supposed to do when it arrived. 3 days passed in tense, quiet waiting. The unregistered vessel continued its slow approach, offering no communication, no explanation, nothing but a steady, unwavering path directly toward Outpost Kepler 9. Sensor teams tracked its energy readings around the clock. Threll analysts cross-referenced every known hostile ship class in Coalition records, searching for a match. Commander Voss ran defense drills twice daily, pulling every available soldier, human and Threll, into readiness positions. Alina spent those 3 days in a strange, uncomfortable limbo. She was not given combat role. She was not given clearance to leave the base either. Instead, she was kept close to command, attending briefings she barely understood, watched by officers who clearly expected something from her that she still could not name. On the second night, unable to sleep again, she found herself walking the quiet corridors near the observation deck. She was surprised to find Ambassador Kelth already there, staring out at the star field beyond the reinforced glass. "You should be resting," he said without turning around. "So should you," Alina replied, stepping up beside him. Kelth allowed a small, tired smile. Threll require less sleep than humans. A biological advantage, though not always a pleasant one during long nights like this. They stood in silence for a moment, watching the distant stars. "Can I ask you something?" Alina said finally. "Of course." "If your system is so certain about patterns and predictions," she said, "why keep it secret? If humans exceed your models so often, why not just tell us? Why hide names on some ledger instead of preparing people for what might happen?" Kelth considered the question carefully before answering. "There was a time, long ago, when we did share these predictions openly," he said. "It went badly. Beings who learned their names appeared on the Vect ledger, sometimes changed their behavior because of it. Some grew reckless, believing themselves protected by fate. Others grew paralyzed, terrified of failing a destiny they never asked for. Both outcomes disrupted the very pattern we were trying to preserve." "So you just let people walk into danger without warning," Alina said, unable to hide the edge in her voice. "We let people remain themselves," Kelth corrected gently. "The pattern we track is not about destiny, Corporal. It is about character. It appears in beings who make good decisions under pressure precisely because they are not thinking about prophecy or fate. They are simply reacting to what is in front of them, drawing on instinct and training, not on the weight of expectation." Alina frowned. "But you told me anyway. About the Kepler incident. About the ledger. Why break your own rule now?" Kelth turned to face her fully. "Because this time is different," he said. "Because whatever is approaching this base is unlike anything we have tracked before, and the risk of not preparing you outweighs the risk of you knowing. I made that choice myself, Corporal, and I stand by it. But I need you to understand something clearly." "What?" "Whatever happens when that ship arrives," Kelth said, his voice steady and serious, "it will not be some ancient system or predictive model that decides the outcome. It will be you. Your training. Your instincts. Your choices in that exact moment. The ledger only tells us where to look. It does not tell us what will happen." Alina absorbed that in silence, staring back out at the stars. Somewhere out there, drifting closer with each passing hour, was an answer to a question she had never wanted to be part of. On the third night, the alarms finally sounded, Elena bolted upright in her bunk, heart hammering, as the base-wide alert blared through every corridor. Red emergency lighting flooded the halls. Soldiers rushed past her door, pulling on gear, shouting coordinates and orders. She grabbed her uniform and ran toward the command center, following the same path she had walked dozens of times over the past 3 days. Except now everything felt sharper, faster, more real. The unregistered vessel had stopped its slow approach. It was now moving at full speed directly toward the outpost, weapons systems active, still offering no communication whatsoever. Commander Voss stood at the center of the command deck, barking orders to both human and Threll officers, coordinating defense positions across the base. Ambassador Kelth stood nearby, his usual calm expression tightened with visible tension. 90 seconds to engagement range, a Threll technician called out. All defense platforms online, another voice confirmed. Elena pushed through the chaos toward Commander Voss. What do you need me to do? Voss barely glanced at her, focused on the main screen. Stay close, Corporal. If Ambassador Kelth's system is right, whatever's about to happen, you're going to be part of it whether either of us likes it or not. The vessel appeared on the main display, a dark, angular shape cutting through the starfield, weapons ports glowing a dull red. It was smaller than Elena expected, sleek and fast, clearly built for speed rather than heavy combat. It's not slowing down, the technician reported, panic creeping into his voice. Its trajectory puts it on a direct collision course with the main defense grid, not a standard attack pattern. Kelth's eyes narrowed. That's not an assault approach, he said quickly. That's a ship in distress, trying to force an emergency landing. Commander Voss turned sharply. You think it's not hostile? I think, Kelth said, already moving toward the communications station. We may have misread the pattern entirely. Before anyone could respond, the vessel's weapons ports flared, not toward the base, but wildly, erratically, firing off course into empty space, as if the ship systems were malfunctioning rather than under deliberate control. It's losing structural integrity, a Threll officer called out from his station, reading rapid streams of data. Life support fluctuating. This isn't an attack. This is a ship about to break apart. The command deck erupted into fast, overlapping voices, plans shifting in real time from defense to rescue. Elena felt her heart pounding, but underneath the fear, something else stirred, a strange, quiet clarity she did not fully understand. There are life forms aboard, the officer continued, voice tight, reading approximately 6 individuals. Species unknown. Vital signs weakening rapidly. Commander Voss's jaw tightened. Can we get a rescue team out there before it breaks apart completely? Not in time, the officer replied grimly. Not with standard extraction procedures. The ship will lose full integrity in under 4 minutes. The room went quiet for a moment, the weight of that timeline settling over everyone present. 4 minutes. 6 unknown lives. A malfunctioning ship no one understood, drifting closer to catastrophe with every second. And in that silence, Elena Reyes stepped forward. She did not fully understand why she moved. She did not consciously decide to speak. It simply happened, the same way it must have happened 14 years earlier, in a chaotic evacuation shelter, when a 6-year-old girl calmly reached for a control panel while adults around her panicked. The magnetic docking clamps, Elena said, her voice steady despite her racing heart. If their propulsion is failing, but their hull integrity is still holding, we don't need a standard extraction. We need to stop them from moving, not pull them inches. Every head in the room turned toward her. Explain, Commander Voss said sharply. Elena stepped closer to the main display, studying the readings scrolling across the screen. Her mind moved faster than she expected, pulling together pieces of logistics training, emergency docking procedures, and something else entirely, some instinct she could not name but somehow trusted completely. Their weapon systems are firing erratically, which means their power core is destabilizing. Not their hull, she continued. If we try standard tractor extraction, we risk pulling apart a hull that's already under strain. But if we deploy the outer magnetic clamps, the ones used for cargo securing, not rescue, we can stabilize their position without adding stress to the ship itself. It buys us time to get an actual rescue team aboard safely. Kelth stared at her for a long moment, something shifting behind his dark eyes. Then he turned quickly to the nearest technician. Cargo clamp specifications. Now. The technician pulled up the data, and within seconds, Kelth was nodding rapidly. She's right, he said, urgency sharpening his voice. The clamps were never designed for this, but the physics holds. Commander, we can attempt it. Commander Voss did not hesitate. Do it. Now. What followed were the longest 90 seconds of Elena's life. Technicians scrambled to redirect the cargo clamp systems, adjusting calculations on the fly, guided by Elena's rapid input, as she recalled details from logistics manuals she had studied years earlier. Details she had never expected to matter in a moment like this. The base's outer clamps extended, locking onto the failing vessel's hull with careful, calculated pressure, holding it steady without crushing it. The ship stopped tumbling. Its weapons fire ceased entirely as its systems stabilized under the reduced strain. A rescue team launched immediately, reaching the vessel with barely a minute to spare before its power core would have failed completely. When the 6 survivors were finally pulled aboard the outpost, alive and stable, the command deck let out collective breath, tension breaking into quiet, exhausted relief. Elena stood in the middle of it all, hands trembling slightly, the adrenaline finally catching up to her. Commander Voss walked over, studying her carefully. How did you know that would work? Elena shook her head slowly. I didn't know for certain, she admitted. It just made sense in that moment. I wasn't thinking about prophecies or predictions. I was just thinking about the ship, the physics, what we actually had available to us. Kelth approached slowly, his expression unreadable at first, then softening into something close to quiet satisfaction. That, he said, is precisely the pattern our systems have tracked for 2 centuries. Not fate, not destiny, simply the ability to remain calm, to think clearly, and to find a solution where others see only failure. The rescued crew turned out to belong to a small, independent trading vessel, unaffiliated with any hostile faction, caught in a catastrophic engine failure far from any friendly territory. Their unregistered status and erratic approach had been nothing more than a desperate attempt to reach the nearest possible help before their ship failed completely. There had been no attack, no hidden threat, only 6 frightened strangers, saved because someone on that base refused to accept the predicted outcome of disaster. In the days that followed, as Outpost Kepler 9 slowly returned to its normal rhythm, Elena finally received a full explanation from Ambassador Kelth about what her passport scan had actually revealed that first day. It had never been a warning about danger. It had been a marker, quiet acknowledgement buried deep in coalition records, that history tends to bend differently whenever someone like her is nearby. The base had gone silent that day not out of fear, but out of 2 centuries of accumulated respect for a pattern the Threll had tracked across countless worlds and countless crises. A pattern that, once again, humanity had proven correct in the most unexpected way possible. If this opened your eyes to how differently the galaxy might see humanity, you are not alone. Weeks later, Elena received official notice that her file within the Vect ledger had been updated once more, this time with new data from the Kepler 9 incident. Ambassador Kelth explained that her signature had grown even stronger. Statistically speaking, a rare confirmation event rather than a single occurrence. It meant, in simple terms, that whatever pattern the Threll had first noticed in a 6-year-old girl 14 years ago was not a fluke. It was something deeply woven into who she was. But the deeper truth, the one Alina carried with her long after leaving Kepler-9, was something Kelth had told her quietly on that final night before her transfer home. The Vect ledger, for all its centuries of data and careful analysis, had never once accurately predicted what a flagged individual would actually do in the moment that mattered. It could only say that something extraordinary tended to happen nearby. The rest, every decision, every calculation, every ounce of courage required to act, still belonged entirely to the person standing there. Humanity had not exceeded alien predictions because of destiny or fate. Humanity exceeded them because, again and again, ordinary people chose to act with clear thinking exactly when it counted most. Alina Reyes was never chosen by some ancient system to be extraordinary. She simply refused, both as a frightened 6-year-old and as a tired corporal 3 days into a crisis, to accept that failure was the only option available. That, more than any passport scan or silent salute, is the real reason an entire base once stood frozen, waiting to see what a quiet, unremarkable soldier would do next. So here is what we learned today. First, hidden systems built by careful alien analysis have quietly tracked humanity for years, expecting rare outcomes, only to watch humans exceed those expectations again and again. Second, the most extraordinary moments in someone's life are often buried in memories they cannot fully recall, shaping who they become long before they understand why. Third, real courage rarely looks like destiny. It looks like ordinary people making clear decisions when everything around them says to panic. If you enjoyed this story, hit that like button right now. It genuinely helps this channel grow. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss the next HFY story. Because trust me, there are many more waiting. If you want deeper dives into human exceptionalism stories, alien first contact tales, and more hidden hero moments like Alina's, check out our next video linked on screen. You will not want to miss it. Drop a comment below and tell me this. If you discovered your own file had a hidden flag like Alina's, one that revealed something extraordinary about your past, would you want to know the full truth? Or would you rather stay unaware, the way Alina almost did? I read every comment, so let me know exactly what you think. Thank you for watching all the way through. Stories like this only reach more people because of viewers like you sharing them. See you in the next one.